everyone. I'm just waiting for Elena to join me here on the screen.
Hey.
Hey. We're so excited to be speaking to you today, and we have a really special presentation. So I'm just gonna share my screen. Let me know if you guys can see this okay.
Looks good.
Looks good. Are we on full screen?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay, nice. So yeah, our presentation today is going to be on connection marketing, and you're probably wondering what this is. We were asked to come here and speak about social media marketing because I think as a younger generation, it's something that we naturally are more inclined to do. And as our business transitions, it has this huge goal of reaching 10 million wellness consultants, active wellness members. We need to leverage the power of social media in order to achieve that goal. It's the fastest way to spread a message across the world, right? But you can really get lost in the social media world, as I think both of us have experienced, and probably many other people who are on this call today. So we want to change the strategy a little bit so that it feels a lot more aligned, a lot more intentional, a lot more heart-centered. So connection marketing, yeah, it's about leveraging your energy over your expertise. And you know, there is what you know, but then there's who you are. And I think that is a lot more valuable. So really the intention here is to create a loyal community of humans who want to stay connected to you and your message for the long run.
Yeah, so the approach is quite different, you know, as we were reflecting on this. It's different from what we've seen and experienced on social media up until this point. We feel like it's still like new and building. And I want to just, as Ben said it, a spring statistic that he brought up, where this is my first time hearing it, that the average person spends 3 years of their life on social media, you know, and here we are about to give you an entire presentation.
I don't even think that statistic is accurate, because
I think it's greater.
10 years. So, I mean, it's so new. We don't even know what the long-term impacts are going to be.
Right. And so I think it's an important point to bring up because our perspective really matters here. And social media really at the end of the day is just another resource. You know, it's what the intention, the approach behind it is what dictates the outcome, the experience, the relationship that we even have with it ourselves. And so what we're looking to create is a new approach that really just cuts through the monotony of social media today, you know, the desire to go viral, to chase the next trend, and speak directly to the individual that needs to be seen, heard, and empowered to take action. To see if we can translate, you know, the way that we connect and build community in person onto this new modality that can essentially scale our reach, you know, scale community and create more of a sense of love and belonging.
Right.
And so that's what we're going to take you through.
Really about community. You can have 1 million followers on social media, but if those people are just eyes, they're just a number on the screen, and they don't really feel connected to you, and you don't really feel connected to them, and they're not really your soul tribe, then it's not going to convert.
Exactly.
And so that's what we're a lot more interested in. We've identified 3 key elements, and this is what we're going to be outlining in this presentation. The first 3 element is storytelling, and then we have vulnerability and relationshiping. And we're going to get into all of those.
Yes. So the first component, as Sophia mentioned, is storytelling. And we feel that this quote here by Andrew Stanton really emphasizes and encapsulates like the potency and the power behind the art of storytelling. And that is, there isn't anyone that you couldn't learn to love once you've heard their story. And I'm sure many of us can resonate with that truth on many different levels. So what does storytelling actually entail?
The intention behind storytelling is to share the real reason why you're doing something, which is emotional, and not what you are doing, which is mental. You know, whenever we get on social media, especially when we talk about our business, the thing that we want to do most is just, oh, there's this amazing 20% off on the Kenko Nature's Fit. It's like you're telling them what's going on. You're not telling them why that's important. And you're not telling it in a way that is relatable. I think storytelling is such a beautiful art form because it's so primitive. You know, the reason why myth and folklore was the way that we communicated with each other, you know, for centuries on end is because, it really allows somebody to put themselves in the story, right? Instead of you telling somebody what to do, they're naturally going to put themselves in that role and think, how does this relate to me on a personal level? What would I do if I was the main character? And, it creates this sense of like, I want to know what happens. So somebody starts the story and can't help but get to the end. And I think, especially if you're using your own personal stories, it's just an insight into who you are. And that's what really creates connection and makes people feel like they know you and they trust you.
Yeah, absolutely. And the approach here really is simple. It's to work with what you already have. If you are going to tell stories that reach someone, that actually connect with an individual and share an aspect of who you are, they need to be your stories. They need to be your lessons, your transformations, and you already have your greatest stories. Your entire life is just a series and thread of lessons and stories that you've experienced yourself. So draw on what you have, what you've experienced up until this point. And in terms of the structure, there's a very basic structure in terms of how to go about storytelling. And we've kind of outlined that for you just to kind of get you started. First and foremost, you need to know the beginning. That's your hook. Start with something that can kind of draw your audience in. Maybe it's a question, right? And you want to know the overall message that you're looking to deliver. That's your ending. That's what you're getting to. Everything in between is where you get to be creative. It's where you get to sprinkle who you are. It's where you get to create mystery, wonder, and uncertainty for your audience, because we are also natural born deducers. We are natural born problem solvers. People want to work for their meal. So this is the meat and potatoes. This is where they get to put themselves in your shoes. This is where you draw the audience, where you draw your reader into the experience themselves, where they can really start to connect and draw their own insights from it. So this is where we want to hear about your lessons. What was the massive chasm that you crossed? What was the transformation? It goes back to what Sophia said, where people want to know why you're doing something, not what you're doing, because they want to know how it relates to them and their story and where they're at. So talk about your first day as an entrepreneur. Talk about why you started a business. Talk about the fear, the doubt that you had and how you walked yourself through that process. Because the person who's reading that, the person who's listening to that is able to sit back and think to themselves, I can see myself in their shoes. I see myself in that person. And if they're doing it, then why can't I? If she can do it, why can't I? And that's where you start to tap into that power of transformation. That's where you really start to tap into the empowerment of another individual taking action because of the inspiration that they got from your story.
Awesome. So the next point we're going to talk about is vulnerability. And this is kind of just like, so what kind of stories should I tell? Which one's really the juiciest, the most powerful, the ones that are going to have people leaning in and reaching out to you and saying, thank you for sharing that. And vulnerability is really what it comes down to. We love this quote by Brene Brown. Brene Brown is like, if you haven't watched, I think her Netflix special is called Call to Courage. She's like a vulnerability spokesperson, and she's really revolutionizing the way people do business and life. But she says, vulnerability is the birthplace of joy, creativity, belonging, and love. And here in the Nikan community, those are 4 key pieces of what we want to create and, have more of in our community.
Yeah. So it really just, again, becomes a question of, how can we share stories authentically that touch an individual's heart? The core component there is vulnerability. And so the intention is to build trust through radical self-acceptance. And as you do that, you give others the space and the permission to do the exact same. And the only way to find your soul tribe, the only way to find the community that shares the same values that you hold, that have the same outlook on life that you would want to spend your time with, is to bare your soul. But it's often the experiences that make us most who we are that we're most afraid to share with others, right? And that really just comes from the judgment that we place on ourselves. Those most intimate parts of ourselves, maybe they're mixed in with feelings of guilt and shame. And so we expect to receive the same rejection from those that we share it with. But as you begin to see through the judgment, as you begin to see these pieces of yourself as yourself, and you come forward and share it from that place, from the heart, from that authentic reality that you've experienced, you start to cut through and connect directly with the person, right? you start to give them permission to do the same thing. You start to receive actually feedback, positive reinforcement, because now you're showing up entirely as yourself. Somebody is responding to that and almost affirming it to you as something powerful. You become more inspired to do the same. And again, you start to create more of the space for others to do that. And this has really been a core piece, and I would say transformation for myself in terms of how I've learned to relate with others, and how I've learned to derive meaning from those connections and show up more for myself on my business, and online as well.
Yeah, I think more than anything, vulnerability creates a sense of belonging, because all of us have this inner fear that we don't belong, but it's also the thing that we want most is to belong. And if somebody can reflect back to you a part of yourself that you are so afraid to share, that you keep hidden from the world, suddenly you're like, they see me. I must belong here, you know? And so the approach to vulnerability is really simple. Although it can be really challenging to be vulnerable, I think it's helpful when you consider the person who can be helped or inspired by your story, because then it takes the pressure off of you. You know, it's like, okay, I could be selfish and share this, or I could be afraid of the people who are going to judge me if I share this, or I could think about that one person out there who might hear this story and it could change their whole entire life. And isn't it worth it to put yourself out there if it could make that difference for somebody else? So drop into that space of, it's not about me, it's about who I can help. Tune into your heart. Ask yourself, what is really begging to be shared today? You know, there's always going to be a message that your heart wants to share each and every day. And if you take the time to tune into that space, instead of thinking from your mind, like what makes most sense for me to share today? You know, what would drive sales in my business today? What would get me a new consultant today? That is all from the mind space. And that energy is going to be felt by your audience. But if you tune into your heart and you're like, what value can I share today? How can I connect with someone today? How can I make someone feel seen today? How can I inspire someone today? It's going to have a completely different energy and therefore a completely different result. And then, of course, be willing to show up imperfectly. You know, social media is not about being perfect. It's something that it's a trap that I've gotten lost in. But guess what? Every time I tried to follow a mold or a template for social media, I ended up getting so burnt out and feeling so empty and just drained. When you go about social media with the sole purpose of connecting with people, you're always going to have your cup full. And,
Absolutely.
And we're not going to connect if we're all these pretending to be these perfect humans. Like, it's just not real. It's not real.
It's not natural. It's not natural. It's not who we are. It's not true to who we are. It's not true to our inner nature. And I think that's the biggest component of it when it comes to, you know, creating connection, is we connect greatest on our humanness, which makes us flawed and imperfect. So the more you can show up that way, the more people see themselves in you. And they're like, I relate to that person. You know, it's important to share the wins, but most people want to see the challenges and the struggle along the way, because then they get a sense of how they can walk themselves through that same process. And maybe with your help along the way. Okay, and that brings us to our last component of connection marketing, and that is relationshiping, right? And so we found this quote by Ben Stein that really just, again, drives home the importance of relationships. At the end of the day, this is what we're here to do. This is what we're here to create. This is how we learn. And that is that personal relationships are the fertile soil from which all advancements, all success, all achievements in real life grows, right? Relationships, connection, that's all your greatest currency. Your network is your network. We've said it so many times, and we are in the business of building networks, building community.
Yeah, so the intention of relationshiping, this is really where, so you're putting out this content, right, that feels so incredibly aligned with your soul that you're like, whoever resonates with this, like, you're my person, you're my soul tribe, like, we need to talk. I just want to hang out with you because, you know, this is me, this is my truth 100%, you know, and if this is something that inspires you, if this is something you can relate to, like, that's it. And people will reach out to you, people will comment, people will like. And relationshiping, the intention of this is now to turn those connections into conversations, to kind of throw the energy back at them and allow them to respond. Absolutely. And then to create this dynamic, like, dialogue between the two of you, that could have many different outcomes, but really the point of it is to create a relationship that goes both ways, where it's not just you, it's now also giving them the space to return and to share about themselves.
Right. Because that's the point of what it is that we're doing at the end of the day. You know, we're not just looking to show up, we're looking to actually make new connections and relationships. So the question then becomes, you know, how do I translate who I am and how I'm showing up? How do I transform these authentic, genuine connections that are just beginning to, you know, be born into actual transformation, into real tangible transformation? And so, as Sophia mentioned, when you start to show up more authentically on, you know, online or in your business in general, you'll start to notice people engage with aspects of, you know, your story. They resonate with your values. They resonate with where you come from. They resonate with your perspective, and they respond. You'll notice people maybe responding to your actual Instagram stories, or maybe people commenting on your photos or your Facebook post. Those are the people you want to pay attention to. Because again, those are the people that are actually in deep resonance with who you are, what you believe in, and where you're headed. You want to love on your people at the end of the day. And so first and foremost, we want to start to get curious about who our community actually is. You know, get interested in their interests, in their dreams, in their greatest fears. Ask them questions so you can get to know the person behind the screen. And then I think the next key step, which is actually the most important here, is get the vibration right. First and foremost, check in with yourself and ask yourself, what is my intention behind this connection? What is the frequency? What is the energy with which I am engaging with this person? Do I have the expectation of a certain outcome or a certain result? Or am I connecting just for the sake of connecting? Because at the end of the day, we live in a world today where everybody is trying to sell you something. You know, everybody is trying to get you to believe in their vision, in their product, in their service. Everybody is fighting for what is the hottest commodity today, and that is your time and your energy. But we've lost a sense of connection. So when you get to become curious about the other individual and you move into that new dynamic, into that relationship with the intention of purely connecting, that's where the magic happens. Because you're no longer blocking the value that actually needs to come forward in this relationship. You don't know how this relationship is going to serve you today, tomorrow, or even a year from now, right? And you can come into it with this intention of getting curious. You start to ask them, you find out what their needs are. You know, you naturally find out what their fears are. And you might have a solution that could help them. Or they may have value to offer you that would take you from point A to point B in your growth and in your evolution. So the point is to remain open. It's to remain curious, to really stay in that vibration of service, to sit into the heart and to connect just for the sake of connecting.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with inviting someone to come learn about Nikan, inviting somebody to learn about a product, but it's all about, is that coming from that place of service? Have they given you reason? Like, have they said to you, like, if someone says to you clearly, like, I struggle with back pain every single day, you would be disservicing them if you did not tell them, I have a solution for that. If somebody's telling you, like, I am so sick of this job, like, I'm really looking for a way to transition, you would be disservicing them by not bringing them into our world and showing them the naked opportunity, right? But it's all from a place of service. And you would only ever get to that point in a conversation with somebody if you were genuinely curious about the things that they're going through in their life.
Absolutely.
Genuinely wanting to help them. You know, there's so many times where I've gotten into conversations with someone and I realized, hey, the best way I can help them is, you know, by introducing them to this friend I have who is doing this awesome thing that, you know, totally would be in alignment for them. And it feels so much more light and empowering when I know that I'm just offering them the best service I can give them at that time. And sometimes that's Nikan, sometimes it's something else.
Right.
I think this is the most sustainable way to continue to do our business, where you don't feel like weird or you don't feel like out of alignment with your heart space, you know? And that's what's most important, is to stay in that heart space so that your business can be a reflection of that energy. And it's going to have a ripple effect beyond what you can even imagine.
Absolutely.
So yeah, we want to give you guys some ideas to jumpstart your creativity. I definitely recommend pulling out your phone and taking a photo or a screen capture of this, because it's just like a really great way to get you thinking about what kind of posts you can make. So the first question, maybe to write a post about, would be what people have made a significant impact on your life and why.
Yeah. And I also want to just mention too, like, these are great prompts for, you know, the messages you want to share with other people, but also just to be asking yourself these questions first and foremost, because again, you start to connect further with your own lessons and story in life. You start to become empowered in the experiences you've already had. And that's where you begin to, again, offer your service, offer your value from that place of who you are, right? So the next question, I love this one. I literally love this one. It's failing at my first. And as I already mentioned, you know, people want to hear your wins, share your wins, but share how you also got to that point. You know, share the trials and the tribulations and the challenges along the way, because that's how you actually generated the results that you generated for your life. That's how you achieved such massive success and growth. It's through the struggle. It's through the lessons you learned in that. And that's something, again, that people connect with more than anything else.
Right. We have to feel like it's going to turn people away, but it's not. It's just going to make them feel like, oh, okay, I can join this business and still make mistakes and still go through struggles and still succeed.
Exactly.
People don't start because they're afraid to fail, but what if they knew that they could fail and still succeed?
Exactly. Same thing with the next.
Question. What hardships have you faced and overcome? How can others learn from this experience?
Yeah. Similar as the last question. And then just to kind of speed things along, again, guys, take a picture of this, but you know, think about where your greatest lessons come from. What do you know today that you wish you would have known in high school? What do you know today that you wish you would have known on your first day of starting your business? Leveraging other people's stories. Is there a story someone else shared with you that made a huge impact in your life? I'm sure there are many. So if you feel like you're in that place too, you're like, I don't know where to start, leverage other stories. It's a very powerful way to connect with people as well.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to continue on the next slide. Sounds good?
Yeah.
All right, awesome. At the end of the day, if you're in doubt, give your heart the microphone. The energy of your words are far more powerful than the content or delivery. I'll just let that one sink in. You guys got this. We can't wait to see what amazing content you put out there.
Yeah.
And the amazing community that you build from that. Thank you so much for listening. It's always an honor
you guys
to be here. And yeah, excited for the rest of your day.